Okay, I finished in this chapter on the MySQL database server. I finished installing MySQL, and I uploaded this video that showed what I did. So at this point, what I'm going to do is go through the rest of the chapter. That's it. So what I'll do here is start up the server. Let's see if I can remember how to do that. It's on the C drive, program files, MySQL here. Before I start it up, let's check that it's not running, and we have to do this anyway. Let's get a terminal window here, or command prompt. Type in MySQL. Can't connect to the server, it's not running. Let's start up the server. I go into the bin folder here, look for mysqld.exe, start that up, come back here. Good, we connect, and also we log in without a password. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Our system is not open to the outside, so it's not a security problem. Unless you accidentally opened up, I think it's port 3309, something like that, 3306, whatever the port that MySQL listens on. That shouldn't be open to the outside. Otherwise, someone can log in without a password. So let's go back and investigate here. Show databases. Let's see, here I suggest that we log in as root. And what do? We show databases here, and select a database, create a database like that. Let's see, show databases. Let's see if we can create a database. Create database. We just have a suggested name here. Call it test. Oh, we have test already. Call it SAM for sample. Alright, so it doesn't, with a user account that we're running under, we cannot create a database. So I'm going to quit. I'm going to go back in here and log in as the root user. Let's create the database. SAM. There it is. Then it shows things like dropping databases. Let's take a look at that. So show databases. And see that test database. Let's use the test database. So that's selecting it. Then we'll show tables like that. There's nothing in there. So let's use SAM. That's the database we created. Show tables. There's nothing there. We can drop the database test. Drop database test. And I'll use the up arrow to scroll through the command history. Here's show tables. No, that's not what I want. Show databases. So now you can see test has been dropped. So we looked at this create command, and we didn't. To exit, we actually used that quit. We looked at show databases. The select command here. This shows you how to cancel a multi-line command. So if we did something like this, we decided we want to exit, we use this \c like that. Because in MySQL you can enter your commands on multiple lines. So look at this. I have the word show, the word databases, and the symbol semicolon on 3 separate lines. Then I can hit enter at the end of that, and you'll see this arrow here is a line continuation prompt. So if we wanted to abort that, we can use \c. Alright, that's that point. And then, let's see. We created a database. We dropped a database. We're describing a table. The thing is, we don't have any tables yet. So, let's keep reading here. Let's create a table. Here's a way to create a table. And let's take a look here. These are examples. Create database bookstore. Use the bookstore. And create table book like this. Alright, so this stuff can you can type this out and see how this works. Inserting records, that shows it here, and so on. Now we get to you can try all of these or read about them, whatever, but I'm going to come down to here where we talk about a database of news items. We'll need this to do the activities that are in the remaining chapters of the book. So we're going to create a script called createdb.sql, another one insertdb.sql, and finally cleandb.sql. And let's see, we were going to create an ant build script that lets us run the commands in a I guess what we would call a batch job. So we write the commands out in a text file, and we run all the commands at once by submitting that text file to the MySQL command line client. And we're going to do that through what's called the ant build system. So that'll give us some exposure to the ant build tool, which is widely used in Java development, although its use is getting covered up a little bit from higher level tools like Eclipse that use it internally and reduce the need for the developer to work with ant directly. So let's keep moving on here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a database called Publisher. There it is. Create database Publisher. Grant all privileges on publisher.star to publisher at localhost. So this publisher here, this is the database username, and this is the host or the computer or the host name, the internet host name from where the user publisher will connect to the server in order to access this database called Publisher. So just so that we can remember it, these are 3 separate things actually, although we give them the same name just to make it easier to remember. So we've created a database called Publisher. On that database we have tables. Publisher.star is an expression that represents all tables under the publisher database. So this .star is called a wildcard. Star is a wildcard character, so publisher.star matches against all tables in the publisher database. So we'll grant all privileges on all tables in the publisher database to the user who authenticates as publisher and who in addition is connecting from the local host. So we won't allow connections from anything other than the computer that we're running the database server on. And then finally we have this phrase here, identified by quote publisher, and this is the password. So let's grab that whole thing. Let's go ahead and get that. Go to the end there, paste it in there. Alright, that's created. And there's some explanation there. Now what we're going to do is run these create these commands in a file called createdb.sql. We're going to do that inside of the publisher project. So that means we're going to anyway, I'm going to exit from MySQL, and I'm going to start up Eclipse. And so we must have a publisher project at this point. There it is. So we'll put these things in there. So what do we recommend here? Let's take a look. Create a folder called database, and within that folder create a file called createdb. Let's do that. So we're going to create a folder called database. Under publisher. And under database we're going to create a file called createdb.sql. There it is. And it automatically opened up this this editor. So here's the commands that we should use for this. So we could run these commands from the MySQL command line prompt, but we may need to modify these commands over time and rerun them. So it's convenient to then store the commands in a text file, which we can then submit to the MySQL command line client to execute the commands for us when we need them. So there's 3 commands here. This is the first one. Remember, all commands end with a semicolon. So there's 3 semicolons. That means there's 3 commands. Now we might want to spread these out as well, although it doesn't really matter. So we create a table called news item. There's an ID in there, which is a primary key. There's a title, which is of data type text, cannot be null. There's another text item in there called URL, which is also not null. So we have a table called news item, and it has 3 fields in it: ID, which is the primary key, it's an integer, title, and URL. Then we have another table called sequence, and in here we have a single value, a single column, or a single field called next value. This is of type integer. and we're going to use this to generate the primary keys. In a MySQL, you can generate primary keys using something called an auto increment, but that is not portable to other databases, so I'm going to avoid that. We're going to use this process which works with a larger number of databases, which is to manage our own generation of our own unique integer primary keys using this sequence table. So what we'll do is we'll store the next ID value. I guess I could have called that next ID value, maybe that would be more clear. We'll store the next ID value here in this table. So this table called sequence will have a single row, a single column, a single row. It just holds a single value. Every time we need an ID, we'll grab the ID from this field here, next value, and then we'll increment this field. So the next time we get the next value, we'll get a value that we haven't used yet. Oh, and look at this. This is where we actually populate this sequence table with a value. We're going to start counting from 1,000. So rather than starting at 1 or 0 or something like that, we're jumping. We're going to start at 1,000. So the generation of IDs that we do in our code will start at 1,000. So if we need to manually insert records, we can insert those with ID values that are less than 1,000. We won't get a problem colliding with IDs that are already used. So we have that create DB. Let's keep reading here. There's some explanation. Insert. Let's create another file called insert.sql. And here we're going to include these items. Make that easier to look at. So there's two commands. The first command is this first insert. Second command is another insert. Looks like we're missing some data there. Oh, look, I lost this piece there. How to put that in. And so the first one here, these can be spread out, by the way. If we want, we could make them like this. I'll just keep them in one line. So we're going to insert into a table called news item. Is that what we create here? This is the table we created, news item. We're going to insert into that table values for the ID field, title field, and URL field, and these are in fact the values. So the ID is set to 1, the title is set to CNN, the URL is set to this string. Similarly, we do the other one down here. So once again, we started the next value field of the sequence table. We're starting that at 1,000 because we want to. And here's an example why that makes sense. We're going to manually assign these IDs 1 and 2 inside this test data here. All right. Let's keep reading. And then we have another one, clean DB. So what CleanDB does is it's another script. So we have 3 scripts now, and this is used when we make a change in our test data, this data here, and also change to our schema, like the structure of our database, the tables that are in there, what the tables contain, what the relationships are between the tables. So if we make a change to this schema or change to the test data, we just want to first delete everything. So we want to clean, delete the database, and then we'll run the creation script again, and then we run the insertion script to insert new test data into the database. So here we have some commands to put in that clean DB. So we drop table if it exists news item. Drop table if it exists sequence. So we want to delete both tables. Now this part of the command is MySQL specific. If we do drop table news item, that'll work on every database. But if we use the form drop table if exists news item, this will not work on other databases. This will only work on MySQL. So this, as it stands, it's not portable, but it's convenient to include this in here, and it's not essential. It's just that first time you run this script, it will fail because news item and sequence are not yet created. Alright, so we're going to run the we're going to use ant here, the ant build file. We're going to use ant to run these three scripts. So the three scripts, we're going to run them in this order. We're going to clean, we're going to create the tables, and we're going to insert the test data. So we are going to create another file here called build.xml. There it is. And we open in the text editor. If that didn't work, you would normally do something like this. If you didn't get what I just saw, you would right click on that build.xml and go open with oh, that's the ant editor. Let's use the ant editor. Probably will flag us when we have syntax errors. So that's new. I haven't seen that yet. Let's see. So we have the we have that in there, and here's the suggested text. We're just going to use this. We don't have to figure this out on our own here. Paste that in there. So this is an XML file. So this is a way to this XML file, this build script specifies a sequence of operations that we're going to perform. The three operations, we've already said them. We're going to run the clean script, we're going to run the create script, and then we're going to run the insert script. So there's three operations, or three targets. So you can see that these scripts, the names of these scripts, appear inside these target elements. 1, 2, 3 of these. And the whole thing, it's an XML file, so the whole thing has to be in a root element. So the root element is project. That's the opening tag. See, this is the tag name called project. This is the tag, or the opening tag. And then we have the closing tag here. And then everything in between the opening and closing tag here that I have highlighted, this is referred to the content of the project element. So an opening tag, content, closing tag, that taken together is called an element, or the project element in this case. Remember, an element is an opening tag, content, and a closing tag. Now there's exceptions there. You can have what's called empty elements, which here's an example right there. This is an element, and it has no opening or closing tag. It has only a single tag. It's like, I guess we can call it a self-closing tag, because we see that here. We use this syntax. We put the slash right inside the these opening and closing angle brackets. So this is called an empty element. This element here is a normal element. It's not empty because it has this content. Here we could have, this target, we could have made this an empty element, I think, but we didn't do that. So we could have made it like this, but we did not do that. And the reason we didn't do that is because I kept it the same as these, although it does depend a little bit on your parser. If your parser wants to see this target, not the parser but the application, if the application wants the target to be a non-empty element, then we have to specify it like this. So that's an idiosyncrasy of some applications, that they, in a situation like this where we could have used an empty element, because there's no content here, we still use the opening closing tag format in order to avoid that idiosyncrasy of that application. And that's very common, actually. Maybe it's not. It's I guess idiosyncrasy maybe not the best term for that, but that's it. Because this actually, it's this format, the layout of this or structure of this XML file is defined by a schema, an XML schema. And the schema may say that this target element cannot be empty. In that case, it's not an idiosyncrasy of the application, but of the specification for the XML file. All right. So I said there were three operations: clean, create DB, and insert DB. Actually, this extra target here, this looks like a fourth application, but it's really just a convenience. I call this target, all targets must have names. That's done here, and that's why it doesn't do anything. Say it's a target without any contents. Normally a target has some contents to specify the one or more operations that need to be performed. Like in this case, the clean DB has it executes the MySQL command line client. This target has simply has a depends attribute, and it says, okay, for this target to complete, these other three targets must run first. And so basically we can run the all target, and it'll run these three targets for us, or we could individually run these three targets by themselves. So we have that flexibility here. So this target here, clean DB, remember a target has a name, and this depends clause, or attribute rather, this depends attribute is optional. The name attribute, on the other hand, is required. If we leave that out of a target, you'll see we'll get a syntax error. And because we're using this ant editor, the ant editor recognizes in this moment that the target does not have the required name attribute, and so it guesses where the problem is and highlights things in red. Alright, so once again, the clean target, we want to run this script. We want to drop these tables if they exist. And so to do that, we basically need to run this MySQL command and feed it the contents of this clean script. So just to show you how that would work, let's pull up a terminal window here. And I'm going to go to the location. It's not right. Workspace, here it is. Oops. We're inside publisher, right? We're inside database, so just went into this folder that we're working in. We could run MySQL -2 publisher -p password publisher -d uppercase D space publisher. That's the name of the database. So we're in show tables. There should be no tables. So the reason I went in there is not just to check for the tables, but to test that line is good, because now what we're going to do is send in this clean DB script, and as you see it completed normally. We could also send in, let's try one of the other scripts. Let's try the create db.sql. Look at that. Let's go into the database and show the tables. See, we created news item and we created sequence. And we can run the clean script. We go into the database, show tables. Now it's empty. So by having these scripts, we can easily reset the database. We can add new test data, new structure to the database, and so on easily. So, but rather than do this from the command line, which is okay, we could do it from the command line. That's a valid option. Maybe even a better option than using Ant, because then you don't have to complicate your project with an Ant build script. On the other hand, we're going to use Ant, and one of the reasons to use Ant here is because it's worth learning about. It's a very common tool in industry and in Java development, so it's worth some time and effort to digest it, understand at least a little bit about how to work in Ant. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's see what it says here in the book. Running the targets. Well, I think it's pretty straightforward here. Let's just check. I'm going to go back into the database and I'm going to show the tables. There is nothing there. Now, let's go back to Eclipse and run the build script. I'm going to right click on build.xml, and then we're going to look for the command. This is run as ant build. Now this will run ant in the default manner. Ant build ... lets us pick the targets we want to run. So ant build, I believe that'll run the first target. And ant build ... or actually this will run the last target that we ran, something like that. Let's try ant build ... I don't see anything. Let's try that one more time. Run as ant build ... There we go. I don't know what happened the other time. So as you can see, it pre-selected all, which was the first target to run, and all has as a dependency clean DB, create DB, and insert DB. So selecting this is equivalent to doing this. So we could just do it like this. Also, by the way, the order is important. You need to clean first, then create, then insert. So if you don't go this way, then you need to make sure you have the right order. Watch. It's possible if I select insert first. Look at this. Here's the target, execution order, insert, and then clean, that's not going to work for us, right? So that's not going to work. But all is the easiest. Let's run it. There it is. This is the console inside Eclipse. Clean DB runs, create DB runs, insert DB runs, all has completed, build successful. By the way, it'll say, even if there's a failure, it'll say build successful. Let's give an example. We need to make sure that we know what's going on here. So let's look at this create DB. Let's put in a syntax error here. I'll put an L there, and let's watch that fail. Okay, so I'm going to run this again. So this will be run ant build that runs the last one. Look at that. It says build successful, but it just means that ant ran correctly. It doesn't mean that the operations that ant was trying to execute completed normally. So we can see the errors here. So in create DB, that's where we introduce the error. It's reporting these errors. Now this is not ant understanding the error. This message here, this text here is comes from the MySQL command line client. So in this exec operation, which is done here, right, specified through this exec element, that we use an attribute called executable. We set it to MySQL. That means we run the MySQL executable, and the input attribute is tells us names of file that's used for to function as the standard input to the running program. So cleandb.sql is assigned to the standard input for this running program, rather than assigning the console or the keyboard to as standard input. Also, we have, this exec command has contents, and basically in the contents we specify the command line arguments. And so here it is. There's a number of different ways to specify the command line arguments. One way is to specify all the arguments together as a single string, and that's what we're doing here. So we do that using this line attribute. And we have a macro here, so this is not the command line argument. So ant will see this $, open brace, identifier, close brace. Ant will say, oh, that's a macro, I need to run this, I need to resolve this name, I need to replace this name by what it represents. And so, by the way, that's done up here in this property element. So the name mysql.params, that's for the MySQL parameter command line parameters. That it's the value of it is -u publisher, -p publisher, -d publisher. This is what we had to type in on the command line to successfully run MySQL. So when we execute MySQL, assigning the clean DB as the standard input, and also when we run the command, provide this string as the on the command line. And that, by the way, this just allows us to run MySQL with the correct privileges, with the correct database, and the correct user. So that's the same in all three of these commands. They all have the same arguments here. Although what's different is the file that's assigned to standard input here. This is clean DB, here this is create DB, this is insert DB. And we need to fix our error here. We introduced a bug in here. Where was that? Right there. Okay, so let's clean that up. Go back to here. Let's run it again. Here's the console. Build successful, which is always reported, but then we don't see any errors when individual operations are performed, so we know we're okay. We can also check that. Let's go ahead and check that. We can see we have the two tables, and let's select star from news item, say. Oops. Command completion is not working here. Alright, news item. There it is. That's the data. That's our sample data. And that's it.